The pilot suddenly discovered with horror that he had never seen this iron lump in front of him, and it didn't look like his time period at all. Just when he was confused, the airport security guards urgently stopped him. Beta explained that he had fought against the Germans and got lost here by accident, and asked in surprise, "We had no idea you were so advanced." Will looked at him like an idiot and asked if he came to perform with an antique plane. This made Beta even more confused. No matter how he explained, Will simply didn't believe him and took him to the office to report to the superiors. Looking at the young man in World War I uniform, George suddenly became interested.
Oh, what is this?
William Terence Decker, sir. Royal Flying Corps.
You mean Royal Air Force?
No, sir. Royal Flying Corps.
But that squadron ceased to exist long before the end of World War I. He thought he was filming a movie and praised the authenticity of their props. Beta didn't understand what he was saying and could only explain that he was preparing to land at Air Force 56, but somehow ended up here. When they heard this old designation, both men became serious because few people knew about it now. Will asked,
What's today's date?
March the 5th.
What year?
1917.
1917. It's March the 5th, 1959.
This completely overturned Beta's understanding. How could he have arrived 50 years later? But their expressions didn't seem like they were joking. Thinking about his girlfriend he just met, Beta's mind went blank. George praised his performance as better than a young idol's. But Beta, excited by this comment,
It's true, when I took off this morning, it was 1917.
just then, a fighter jet landed on the field. Beta thought about being surrounded by the Germans earlier and flying into a cloud, feeling a sudden pull that brought him to this place. He had heard about similar things before, but he never believed them. Now, he started to wonder if that cloud had made him travel through time. George quickly told him to stop acting, and Beta became furious. He emphasized again the date he left, and even swore in the name of his friend Shuk.
Mackay?
Yes, we're in the South.
Alexander Mackay?
This shocked Beta because the other person actually mentioned his friend's nickname. George mocked him and said that everyone knew Air Marshal Alexander Shuk's name. He asked Beta to confess unless he wanted to be humiliated when Shuk came to inspect. To confirm Beta's identity, George searched all his belongings, but he was surprised to find that the items were even more genuine than he expected. At the same time, Will gradually believed what Beta said and wanted to verify his identity with the military. However, George suspected him of being an assassin and wanted to lock him up. Will thought his superior had lost his mind. How could an assassin strike so quickly? But he was just following orders and had to imprison Beta. Later, he found Beta and told him to meet with the marshal to explain everything. Beta became excited upon hearing this. Will continued to provoke him, saying that if he admitted it was all lies, he wouldn't have to meet the marshal. He also bluntly stated that he didn't even know the marshal. This enraged Beta, who not only emphasized his departure date again but also revealed a small secret between him and Shuk. In a mission, Shuk was hid in a private area, so Beta gave him the nickname Chrysanthemum. Seeing that the other person believed what he said,
Why do you keep insisting that he's dead?
he continued with his story. Early in the morning, they encountered the German Air Force while on patrol. Shuk was immediately surrounded by 7 planes, and the situation looked grim. Beta was also entangled and unable to rescue him. But Will said that not only did Shuk survive, but he also became a hero of World War II and saved thousands of civilians in another mission. Hearing his friend's heroic deeds, Beta's expression changed to one of horror. He suddenly understood something and wanted to leave this place immediately, but Will stopped him. Beta's emotions were off, repeating that he couldn't meet Shuk and begging Will to let him go, or else things would be bad. Will couldn't understand why he was so afraid to meet his good friend. In order to save thousands of lives, Beta finally revealed the truth. When Shuk was in danger, Beta, being cowardly, didn't go to his rescue but chose to escape instead. Since Shuk didn't die, someone must have saved him, and at that time, only Beta had the ability to rescue him. This might be another chance given by fate. If Shuk died, the person who saved him would also die. Will completely rejected Beta's boasting and saw that time was running out. He turned around and Beta punched him, knocking him out. After taking care of the guards at the door, Beta ran quickly towards the airport without knowing where his plane was. Just when he was desperate, he suddenly saw his fighter jet. He ran towards it, quickly started the propellers, and jumped on the plane, preparing to leave. But just as he was about to take off, Will arrived and threatened him to get down.
Can't you understand it? It's not just him, it's all those other lights.
Then, he piloted the plane and left. Will didn't know why he didn't shoot, but he watched Beta disappear into the distance, unaware that his choice indirectly saved thousands of people. When he returned to the office, Will was scolded by George. Just then, Marshal Shuk arrived. Will couldn't help but ask about Beta. Unexpectedly, the Marshal not only knew him but also claimed that his life was saved by Beta. He then told a story similar to Beta's. He thought Beta had abandoned him, but he didn't expect him to come back. In order to save his own life, Beta chose to die with the enemy. Will finally realized that Beta was telling the truth.
What?
But George still didn't believe it. He took out Beta's identification documents, and when the Marshal saw his friend's photo, he was filled with complex emotions. He never expected that one day he would be arrested again.
Where in heaven's name can get these?
Now, what the devil is this all about?
Maybe you'd better sit down, old Redbone. What did you call him?
George never expected that all of this was true. If Will hadn't let Beta go, the consequences would have been unimaginable.